Welcome to This Explainer. If you're currently living in an anarchist commune, or maybe you're out there building an intentional community right now, you already know the absolute biggest headache is figuring out how to share resources. Because, let's be real, you want to do it without someone eventually taking over and calling the shots, right? Well, today we're looking at a fascinating source text that maps out a specific blueprint for this. It tries to solve exactly that problem, detailing how a community can theoretically provide for everyone while still maintaining absolute individual freedom. Okay, let's dive into this framework. We're going to start by rethinking property itself, and then we'll take a tour through the 4 distinct zones of this communal blueprint: municipal co-ops, personal property, the commons, and usufructual libraries, before finally wrapping up with the fabric of freedom. Section 1. Rethinking property and domination. Moving beyond traditional ownership. So we usually see 2 dominant systems when it comes to organizing society. The text outlines capitalism, which it argues glorifies private property, wealth accumulation, and exploitation. And on the flip side, there's authoritarian socialism, which the source suggests simply replaces private bosses with state bureaucrats. Neutrally speaking, the text argues that at their core, both of these traditional systems share a fatal flaw. And that flaw is that they ultimately treat property as a means of domination. Basically, the argument is that either a CEO rules you or a politician does. So, what's the alternative? Well, instead of a rigid one-size-fits-all rule where, everything is shared or everything is strictly mine, communalism offers a totally different framework. It organizes property into 4 distinct types based on actual human need. The source proposes that a truly free society actually requires a plurality of property relations. Each type serves very specific, ethical, and practical functions to keep the community thriving, totally avoiding a single absolute form that might create power imbalances. Zone 1. Municipal co-ops, the engine of the commune. Let's step into the first zone of our commune tour. Think of the really big stuff, the macro-level production that keeps your community alive. Municipal co-ops dictate that all major means of production are collectively owned by the entire municipality. And this arrangement serves a brilliant dual purpose in the text. It completely prevents anyone from forming a private monopoly, while simultaneously keeping power out of the hands of a centralized bureaucracy. The whole goal here is grounding production in grassroots democracy and the common benefit of literally everyone in the town. To put that into perspective, picture your town's solar energy grid, or the large-scale manufacturing workshops, or the central agricultural enterprises. In this theoretical blueprint, these aren't owned by some distant shareholder, and they aren't owned by a state government either. They are owned collectively by all of you, the municipality. Let's move to and see how this builds. How does this actually play out day to day? It's structured as a very specific 2-step flow of accountability. Step 1 is the municipal assembly. This is where literally all commune members get together and deliberate to make strategic decisions about what the community actually needs. Step 2 is the general assembly, which is made up of the specific co-op workers themselves, and they are the ones who execute those everyday operations. So, to use a really simple analogy, the whole town gets together at the assembly and decides what needs to be baked, but the bakers themselves are the ones who decide exactly how to bake it. Zone 2, personal property, your individual space. Now, just because you live in a commune doesn't mean you share absolutely everything. Personal property consists of belongings intended strictly for personal use. The text emphasizes that this must be highly respected and protected because it really is the foundational basis of individual autonomy within this larger collective framework. Your individual space and your personal boundaries are absolutely crucial here. So the crucial point is, there is a really sharp, non-negotiable distinction made in the source text. Personal property ensures your autonomy. It's your home, your clothes. Private property, on the other hand, is specifically defined as capital used to exploit labor and generate profit. Think of buying up land just to squeeze rent out of tenants, or owning a factory to extract profit from workers. In this blueprint, personal property is celebrated and protected, while private, profit-generating capital is structurally eliminated. Bringing this to life with some everyday examples, personal property includes your clothing, your home, your books, your bicycles, your musical instruments. If we use a simple analogy for someone living in an intentional community, your bedroom, your toothbrush, your favorite acoustic guitar, these are entirely yours. No one in the municipal assembly is going to take a vote on whether they get to wear your shoes tomorrow. Zone 3, the commons, shared life and space. Let's head back outside and into the third zone,
The commons. These are resources that belong to no single individual. Instead, they are maintained by all and available to absolutely all. This concept is essentially the glue of the community. It nurtures solidarity and collective stewardship. The goal is to strengthen social bonds while ensuring universal, guaranteed access to life's basic necessities, as well as its everyday pleasures.
Picture yourself walking down a pathway in your commune. You casually reach up and pick an apple from a community fruit tree. You check your messages on the open mesh internet network, and then you sit down to read on a public park bench. Or, maybe you grab a shared bicycle to zip across town. These are the commons in action, vibrant spaces of shared life that everyone enjoys and everyone pitches in to maintain. Zone 4. Usufruct libraries, shared use without ownership.
Entering our final zone, we find a highly practical solution, usufruct. Now, that's kind of a fancy word, but it stands for a simple, ingenious idea, the principle of shared use without individual ownership. It allows people to temporarily borrow large or rarely used items from communal storage. It's for the things we absolutely need to use, but don't really need to hoard. The text points out that this radically reduces waste and avoids unnecessary accumulation without ever turning essential tools into expensive commodities.
And this brilliantly illustrates how practical this is for a functioning community. You have tool libraries for everyday items like power drills, ladders, and trolleys. You've got agricultural libraries for heavy machinery like tractors and plows, and special equipment libraries for things like high-end cameras, sound systems, or projectors. Think about it. If you need to fix your roof or host a movie night for your friends, you don't need to buy a ladder or a projector and just let it sit there gathering dust in your closet for 364 days a year. You simply check it out, use it, and bring it back, exactly like you check out a library book.
The fabric of freedom, balancing autonomy and responsibility.
So what does this all mean when we step back? This entire blueprint argues for a system that successfully balances the scales between autonomy and cooperation. It ensures your personal dignity and individuality through personal property, but it also weaves deep community solidarity through the municipal co-ops, the commons, and those usufruct libraries. The source makes the case that this plurality reflects the diverse, complex realities of actual human needs way better than any single, absolute property rule ever could.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound paradigm shift it represents. Property ceases to be a weapon of domination and becomes a fabric of freedom. It's no longer viewed as a tool for social control. Instead, it becomes a multifaceted, dynamic system designed entirely to help your community thrive.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. If you were building an intentional community or living in a commune today, which of these 4 property types do you think would be the hardest to implement in reality? Think about the practical, everyday challenges of bringing this blueprint to life yourself. It's a pretty fascinating thought experiment for sure. Thanks so much for joining me on this tour, and keep exploring.